Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, you can hear me talking. It sounds kind of odd in here, but we'll do the best we can. Ow. I got a couple cats, so obviously. You might hear that a little bit. I'm going to do my best to just kind of go over this. Let me get my little drawing I made for everybody. So technical. Alright. Let me see. Oh, can't forget. It's part of it. It's part of it. Alright, cheers. Right there for now is fine. Okay. So, a lot of people on the forum I'm noticing, like I said in the post, I'll kind of go over this for people that aren't on the Facebook little forum or whatever. A lot of people are, they're kind of lost when they're trying to use this. They went out and got the synth and they like it, obviously, so they're, trying to figure out how to use it, but they're still having trouble with it. In my opinion, it's a pretty straightforward synthesizer. It's not really, too cryptic when it comes to operating it. When you play on some older ones that are a little more confusing, like the MS-20 is way more basic than this is, even by far, but it still seems a lot more, cryptic and stuff like that. So when I use this, it's pretty straightforward. You can just kind of go with it. So we're just gonna actually dig in. We're gonna start messing with some stuff, and I'm just gonna go over the basic layout, the structure of the synth before I start really messing with it. So a little bit of hand holding this time. I'm gonna go a bit deeper than I did before on the last stream. Was that 18 months ago or something? It's been I've moved seven or eight times in the last 5 years. It's just been, excuse me. It's been a little, it's been a time. I'll just say that. But, so yeah. Let me make sure you can even, see everything. I'm gonna have to go around here and make sure that you can actually see. This is a real odd setup for me. So, I'm gonna go into this. You wanna just kind of see. There we go. Okay, so if I leave that there, you'll be able to see it. Wait till I can kind of see the delay on the screen to make sure that you guys can see. So I'm pretty sure, I'm about to walk around here in a sec. There's a delay on the stream. Okay, so I'm gonna step back a little bit. So this is the structure of the Rev2 drawn out. It's really, really, really simple. It's not very complicated. It starts you have your two oscillators. They're both going into a mixer. This mixer is going into a filter. That filter is going out the amplifier, and that's what you're hearing. Now the amplifier has an LFO. An envelope tied to it. Your filter has an envelope tied to it. And then from there, those are what control your amplitudes and your basic form shaping. Those are the most basic structures of the synthesizer: the filters, the oscillators, the mixer, and the envelopes. Those are your core functions. So now what we have is we have noise that ties in, that goes into the mixer. There's a volume control for it. There's a subdivider coming off of the core of oscillator 1, and that's your sub, that's your square. And those go into the mixer. There's a knob to control that volume too. And then your oscillator 1 is actually tied into the filter's audio mod. So depending on your oscillator's frequency, you can mess with that audio mod in the filter. So a little trick with that is turning oscillator 2 as your main oscillator in the mix. And then what you end up doing is you can use oscillator 1 to be various pitches to mod that filter and get different tones out of it that track differently than the regular oscillator would. So it just gives you more variations and stuff like that. So that's a cool little function. But oscillator 1 is the one that's tied to that. And then there's two filters. You have a 12 decibel filter, and then you have a 24 decibel filter. And both of those are low pass filters. And we'll go over that. And then you have an effects area, and that's tied into like a send kind of on the output. So other auxiliary features could be, I'm kind of moving back, sorry, I forget. But so we're going to kind of come back a little more. Other auxiliary, you have an auxiliary envelope, you have a mod matrix, and then you have a mod wheel. And then you have other modifiers, you have 4 LFOs. And now this represents one voice. So on an 8 or a 16, this is going to happen 16 times over in the entire circuitry and all of that. So like we have these are all points that are not connected to anything. They're just there. So these don't really have anything to do with how the synth functions at its core. These are options for you to add to the synth, in a sense. Like if you were to just look at the circuit, like they all go into this mod matrix that routes everything into these core functions. But this is the core of the synthesizer. All this other stuff is your extra gravy. That's just to get more out of your base functionality, because all of these functions can affect each other in a sense. They did a really good job with all like the routings and stuff like that. So I'm gonna pull it back a little more and just let you look at it, maybe get a better look. But it's a pretty straightforward synthesizer. I'm not an electrician. I don't know how to make a circuit diagram, but just understanding how a lot of basic synths are kind of built, you can draw it out in your head and then start to kind of figure out what it is that you want to do with this thing. And lately I've been getting down on stuff like I'm not even using oscillators in this sound that's like playing right here. There's no oscillators in this at all. It's just the filter. It's just tracking. So it's really like capable of doing a lot of different things. You're not stuck to bread and butter sounds, and that's why I was interested in the synth, and I kind of iterated that a lot in the last live stream. The bread and butter sounds are great. It's a polysynth. It's gonna make cool polysynth sounds. Like why? Like you shouldn't be surprised when you hear it sound good when you're playing chords in a demo. It's like, yeah, duh. And I don't mean to be crude. Like this is just how I speak. I don't mean to talk down to anybody or berate you in any kind of way. This is just how I communicate. So I am like, I have no grace. I'm not mean, but I'm not gonna pussyfoot around and be polite about like kind of like my approach to it, because this is how I talk to myself about it. I'm not talking at you. This is how I talk to myself about it. So I can come off kind of harsh at times, I guess, but in no way do I mean it to be so. But okay, so I guess like where to start is people are asking how to make like things. They're saying that this like synth sounds sterile. Now it's not going to be like a gushy warm thing like an old maybe like an old Oberheim or something like that, but it's a completely different synthesizer. So like why would you can't, it's apples and oranges. It's not really the same thing. Even the Dave Smith Oberheim collab, it doesn't really sound like an Oberheim. It sounds like a Dave Smith with a little bit of an Oberheim edge, and that's okay. It's just like you gotta curb the brand expectations. It's like it really just, you gotta listen to things and just find what you like. Nobody gives a shit that you have a fancy synth if they're making music and they're busy doing stuff and you're just sitting berating everybody on a forum. Like nobody gives a shit. Nobody wants to hear you talk down to them. Nobody wants to hear you brag about like how much better your whatever IC is inside your old thing that breaks down all the time. Like it's poo-poo. Like it's just stupid. So, but yeah, like they'll say it's sterile, and it's like you can get really great sounds out of this thing if you just have to like work the modulation out and really like just tune things up. Not like pitch wise, but you gotta work towards it. that's kind of like my retort, I guess. Like, do you think it sounds sterile? Like, I mean, and I made that. That's not like a preset that like some professional made. Like, I was able to make that. Like, I did it. So it's, for me, it's kind of hard to, it's hard for me to understand how people get so down on their like sound creation. I'm in no way like a professional sound designer. I like to think that I am, but I'm not. Like, it's just not really happening for me in that realm professionally. So, but I like to like work at my sounds. I like to really try to make something that it's different. It's something I haven't necessarily like gone for, or maybe something that's like nostalgic to something I've heard before, but not. I'm never able to really get it like spot on. It's like when you try to recreate like a song or something, like you're not really gonna nail it spot on, like, but you're gonna be able to at least like find parts that might be reminiscent of it. And it's like, and I'm not a keyboard player, so I'm gonna play a lot of the same chords probably, and you'll hear a lot of the same kind of like same kind of sequences and maybe kind of modulations and things like from me playing. So I'll apologize for that ahead of time, but I'll try to make it as not wanky as possible, and just really just focus on like showing you guys some stuff. But another thing I've like people will say is that you can't get like squishy sounds out of it, and I'm it's so we'll turn a little reverb on. Squishy, like, and that's even got sync on it. Like, it's got a little bit of a squish to it, and it's like this one's a little rubbery. They're kind of based off of the same settings. I just made them a little different. This doesn't have the sync on it, so it's got kind of a similar vibe. I think the synth's actually pretty easy to get it into realms that are, you know, kind of like, it's similar, but it's like new kind of territory. And it'll even like, you can even go through and, you know, it does the leads. So it'll do nice like warm stuff. A lot of people will complain about it not really doing like warmness, but I feel like it does a pretty good job with all of that. So let me go look for a setting that I don't care if I write over. Let me see, no, I like that one actually. This is one I really just don't care about. I kind of go through and I kind of delete everything as I go. I don't really care for presets most of the time. Like, they're cool. Just again, it's like, I can't use that for my song. Like, the hell am I going to use that for? Here and there, though, you know, you'll find one where you're like, oh, that's just cool. That's fine. Like, that'll just do when it's not really a sound where you're trying to really get a whole lot out of. So it's kind of like some Aphex Twin kind of thing. Mostly messing with the filter and the LFOs. That one, I just didn't remember what the name was. I don't really name these things properly, so. The THX thing. Okay, here we go. I don't care about that one. We'll go to here, load a basic patch. Alright, we're going to turn the oscillators off. We're just going to start, like, I'm going to show you just, like, what, like, you can start getting sounds out of this thing without really even, without even using any of the oscillators or the filters. So it's like, we're going to go in, we're going to cycle this envelope. A lot of people sleep on this function, or they don't really know how to apply it to what they want to do. And it's not like, oh, you don't know. It's just like they just don't think to Like they're like, what would I do that for? Modular is like really what helped me with a lot of this. Is like, oh shit, like I use a lot of cycling envelopes and modular as sound sources, so it's like it becomes a thing. I'm wondering. So like already, like you can just throw a little white noise in something. Bring it down, it's a little harsh, but you know, so like you can just start simple like that. Like you don't necessarily need to even start using oscillators. Like your best bet is to like just mess with the thing. Don't worry about making some gorgeous like life-changing sound because it's it's analog. Like nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like like, and I only say that because it's like this is my experience. Nobody cares. Your synth friends will care. People out in the real world don't give a shit. They don't care. So it's like whatever block, and this is me speaking. I had this weird block like when I was younger, obviously, and it took me a long time to understand, just like cope with that. Like nobody cares. Just use it. Just really get down to it. You're not gonna learn if you keep thinking, like overthinking it. But knowing what every part is, you can start. You know, you can just kind of just start to like explore things and not really worry so much. So I guess with like a basic, like, let me see if there's any comments, anybody's talking or anything. No, nobody's commenting or doing anything. Okay, well, nobody has any questions, obviously, yet. So I guess what's up, Kat? I guess what to go into. A little bit of a mystery. All right, well, we're just going to start digging. I'm just going to start making a sound, and I'll start kind of walking you through it. And it's going to be, we're going to do kind of a more aggressive thing, I think. And then we'll get into pads and shit. So we're going to start with something nice, like... That already, I mean, like, even though it's a plain wave, it sounds nice. It's a joke. Alright, so the key amount. We're bringing this up right halfway. 64% is basic tracking. Now your frequency is going to control the pitch of the basic tracking, and you go up 12 steps, just like use binary, like math, like, not binary math, but... You know how digits, like, how all this digital shit, like, runs on, like, the 0 to 127. If it's a weird, it'll do 1 to 128. I've had a couple pieces of gear do that. I think it's just maybe just a marketing thing. Like, people, the average, like, consumer in that demographic won't understand that 0 represents something. But I don't know. But I start at, like, 12 or 24, depending on how I want the pitch to come out. What's going on here? Oh, you know what? My resonant... I didn't turn the resonance up. I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, well, this is embarrassing. Here I am, like, it's not hard to use. It's been a long day. It's been a long weekend. Okay, there we go. And I found the 0 cutoff all the way down is a little low. I'm gonna dust this bad boy. It's a little low pitch, so I like to bring it up to, like, about 12, like, to start. Maybe 24. Sometimes I like to get it nice. Okay, everybody can hear that. So we'll start. I'm just gonna start there. So right now, like our cutoff's at 24. None of the envelope controls are being touched at all on the filter. The resonance is all the way up. Key amounts at 64, so it's like directly up. Nothing else is happening. There's no oscillators. There's nothing going on here. So it's messing with the white noise. It obviously like messes. It's a bunch of random frequencies, so it's gonna mess with the filter a little bit, which is cool. I like some of that. You can bring that in, like maybe with like, because you're not gonna get pitch modulation out of it anymore. So here we go. We'll show you how to like turn the filter into a sine voice, so you can actually use like sine waves and play them like a synth. We're gonna go to the mod wheel. First, okay, we're going to start with an LFO as our modulator, and that's going to go to our cutoff because our cutoff now controls our frequency. The key tracking will as well, but you just keep that where it is until you really want to get weird. Just keep it at 64. If you want it to track musically, keep it at 64. We're going to keep the LFO all the way down because we don't want it constant. We don't want a constant effect. I think like we'll start with 50, but we'll slow it down if we need to. So we're going to go to our mod wheel, the mod matrix, and then that's going to be, we're going to adjust the parameter. I'm going to be really careful to not turn the program knob while I'm doing this like I did in the last one. I know everybody has done that. I just wish they would have maybe put the program knob, like been an actual like a switch or something like that, like 4 buttons that you don't usually touch, but you know, whatever. So our mod wheel is going to go to our cutoff, or no, it's going to go, I'm sorry, to our LFO 1 amount. We're going to bring the parameter up. So we're going to bring up the mod wheel all the way and just listen to what the full value sounds like. Because if you think you have to turn the mod wheel up all the way every time you're going to use it when you're playing, it's like you're mistaken. So we're going to bring it up to about 20. Because I don't usually go all the way up unless I'm really trying to get into it. And then we'll bring the speed on the LFO where we actually... That's a little deep even, like, because it just gets silly. It doesn't sound like a nice vibrato. It just kind of sounds silly. There we go. There we go. So there, you basically have a sine voice. So there's a little bit of envelope going on here. So here, I'll tell you where the attack, like, don't bring the, like, a lot of people I notice, like, because I used to do it. I say this because I used to do it. When I first had a synth, it was like release all the way down. There's no release. The sustain was all the way up. Decay was like either all the way up or all the way down because I noticed it didn't do anything. And like the attack was usually all the way like down, like complete. Like I just didn't know how to use envelopes. I just wanted it to be like maximum volume right away. Like, oh, that's what I want to hear it. That's like, it just didn't occur to me how to actually like shape the sound before you start really cutting frequencies out. Like have the sound be like moving in the way that you want it to. Do you want it to be like a pluck, or do you want it to be like have a little bit of life to it? So it's like, and a lot of times it's like you don't want the sound to sustain at full amplitude like constantly. You don't want that all the time. So it's like bring the sustain like between like 50 and 75%. Start there. Like unless you know it's gonna be like a really intense kind of thing like that where you need the sustain all the way up, start with it like 50 to 70%. Like just start there. Just see where you're at. And then, bring the sustain out. Make it a little, or the decay out. Make it a little longer. Give it a nice decay. Like actually like give it some life. And then bring the release. See, now, like just give it like a nice natural sound, and then bring that envelope amount down. Like bring it down halfway. Maybe like 80, bring it down to like 86. Not percent, but 86 on the screen. And then turn your velocity like way up.
it just gives it a more natural sound. They did a really good job with the envelopes on this. And I have a friend that had the OB6 he had the OB6 and he hated the envelopes. And the envelopes might be different. Don't quote me on that because I don't know. I haven't looked into it. But he did not like the envelopes. Or no, he had a Prophet 6. That's what he had. And he didn't like the envelopes. And that thing's more simple than this, but costs a lot more. Again, don't ask me why, but it does. He didn't like it, so he got rid of it. He has, a couple other really dope synths, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, but these envelopes, I feel like my Eurorack system is pretty much, most of my modulation is envelope based. Like, it's a lot of envelopes. I probably have 18 or so, and I don't have a huge Eurorack system. I got some stuff, but I have a lot of envelopes. The more you dig into them and start to understand the correlation, to the envelope amount, to the sustain, to the actual cutoff level or something like that, that's a filter envelope. When you start correlating those changes and you start really hearing it, you'll really start to understand how important the envelopes are. And that's why they give you an extra one. They don't give you a bunch of weird, crazy, abstract modulation stuff. They give you envelopes in here, and you can route the envelopes and mod the envelopes to the envelopes and loop the end. The envelopes are probably going to be your most important modulation source. So it's if you're having trouble getting good sounds out of this, you're having trouble understanding the envelopes. That's my firm opinion on it. Because that's what really was holding me back with a lot of synthesis, was not understanding the envelopes. Because that's what shapes all your sounds. That's what shapes all your modulation. It's a shapeable time-based control. It's way better than an LFO. I used to just put LFOs on everything, and it was oh, cool. Can't really play anything with this. But if you want to play shit and you want to hear reactive sounds, you incorporate those LFOs into modding the envelopes. So we'll get into that too. We're going to keep digging into this nice little kind of sine Boards of Canada fucking Black Moss Super Rainbow thing. But again, this is I'm going to be talking a lot. I'm going to be kind of ranting a lot. I'm going to be drinking beers. I'm not going to, I don't have I don't get a type of way when I drink. I just might talk a little funny. Moderation. And, okay, so we're just going to play some chords here. We're just going to play for a second. Maybe we'll bring pan spread out. Give it a little movement. Give it a little more release, less sustain. That's nice. That's cool. Again, no oscillators. That's sick. I guess while we're here, this is where I can show you the audio mod thing I was talking about earlier. So right now, okay. So it doesn't do anything with the oscillator off. So let's bring it back down to C2, the natural position of where the default setting for the oscillator pitch is. And you can run saw. Just turn your mixer all the way to 2 so the oscillator isn't actually coming through the filter, because then you're going to start hearing the oscillator mixed with this sine wave. And that's cool, but right now that's not what we're trying to do. So we're just going to stick with this, and the shape mod and all of that, we'll see if it does. I don't really notice it doing anything. Your pitch is really going to be important. But a cool thing is if you set the sync up and start doing weird stuff with the pitch of oscillator 2, you can get some really crazy stuff, and we'll go into that. We'll start experimenting. But for right now, so now we're getting this is FM. So it's sounding a little inharmonious because the filter cut off. Because the filter doesn't track a perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it sounds pretty damn good. Now you can start to get DX7 kind of sounds. And if you go in like harmonic registers, you'll start actually getting different tones. But usually the higher you go, the more clean your FM's gonna be, in a sense. So let's go C6. Let's go to the ring mod. So like, look, like, stop worrying about it being a polysynth. Just use the functions. Like this is like gonna kind of be the theme right now. That's dope. Like, I mean, like, I've made stuff kind of like it, but I haven't made this sound before. Like, so let's get a sampling hole going, like a random kind of thing. We're just gonna bring that out to effects parameter 1. We're gonna key sync it so it changes when I hit the key. Like, dude, come on. Don't sit there and tell me that isn't cool. Like, this is coming out of a Prophet. This isn't like some weird digital synth, like on the computer. That's cool. Like, that's cool. So, okay. We're gonna get out of that land. That was just a little demo. So it sounds like it takes whatever core that you're using. So it sounds like it bounces kind of between like the 3 shapes here. The pulse doesn't seem to variate from the triangle. So yeah. Maybe a little BBD. So here we're gonna get we're gonna get bendy here. Like like I said, we're gonna get into shit. Like we're gonna kind of cover a bunch of shit. So right now we have LFO2. It's just on a sawtooth, and that's like, just make it slow. Just make it super slow. Turn it up to like 9. Like turn it. A lot of people just crank the stuff, or they put it like halfway. Like they go immediately either like down all the way or up all the way, and it's like, a lot of your sweet spots aren't going to be in places that you would initially like instinctually start turning a knob to. They're going to be in place. You're going to surprise yourself where the knobs end up. You're like, oh shit, I would never really like, wouldn't have put that like in, into my future vision there. I didn't think of it, to be in that area. So like, that's what I've learned a lot. You're gonna have a lot of surprises, and that's where the best shit comes from. And we want this effects parameter 1. I'm sorry. so that's kind of cool. It's kind of smeary and nice. Yeah, okay. We're gonna go into the mod matrix here. And I hope you can all see my hands right. Like, I tried, like, it took me like 30, 40 minutes to really get the camera set up. This is the best way. Like, I don't have extra tables or stands or anywhere to really put this. Like I said, I moved a bunch, and I'm trying to just, like, work on the configuration best I can until I can figure things out and get enough money to have a better stream setup. This is about the best I can get for this type of situation. But I hope these aren't in the way too much. But I'm in the mod matrix. We're going to go into the value on our source. Our source is going to be our pitch wheel, because we don't have any pitch right now. And the destination is going to be our cutoff, because that's our core pitch. That's what's holding it. So we're going to back up. I forget what the actual, like, the exchange is. Let me... That sounds about... No, that's more than an octave. Okay, 10. So if you set your pitch bend to 10, that'll be an octave on the on your cutoff if you're using your filter as your source. What I did there is I just turned the oscillator off because we're not using it. So here we go. Comments yet. So no questions, nothing. I don't think anybody's even watching right now, so I don't really care. That's fine. Like, I'll post this up and I'm sure they'll watch it later. A lot of these people are in, I know a lot of you guys and gals and others are in other countries and stuff. And a person I actually talked to on the forum, he's in England. He's quite a nice fella, but he's probably asleep or busy right now. So, we have this nice kind of thing going right here. We're going to turn this mod down a little bit. 84 now instead of 91. We just have a delay being modulated by an LFO here, and the LFO's got a key sync. So every time I hit the key, it's going to reset the LFO. So the actual modulation will be somewhat consonant with what we're doing. So here, I have to take a quick breather. I'm just gonna let that drone for a second. warm from yesterday. My friend brought them for me. Okay. Okay, well, let me type in the chat real quick. Okay. We got 4 people watching, I guess. And it might just be me and whoever else, but okay. So just brought the attack in a little bit, just a little bit more. Like that. That nice stuff that just adds a lot of character. It's really easy to add, and I think a lot of like people get caught up trying to make interesting sounds or sounds that sound good to them, and they just like everything has to be modulated. Everything has to be that. Like sometimes a really good sound is really simple and natural. Excuse me. And it's taken me a long time to like learn this discretion. I've only been messing with synths for Jesus, excuse me again, like 12, 13 years. I've only been heavily messing with synthesizers for, I've owned a synth for about 12 years, 11, 12 years. But I didn't really start like hardcore digging and really understanding stuff until I got into modular, like in 2016. Like 3 years I've been pretty hardcore about it, and it's kind of like my black hole at this point. But I've been into synths for, I've been making synthesizer based music for about 13 years, and it's taken me this long and I've been playing music since I was 11. Like, and I started with piano when I was 4. I just didn't take it seriously till I was like 11 and really went into it, but with guitar. And like, so don't get too down about it, because it's taken me a long time. Like, and I'm not like, again, like I'm just another sea in the face, like another person, like a face in the sea of faces. Like I'm not like standing out or anything. Like I didn't make any sounds on this. Like companies don't approach me to make sounds. So it's like, don't get so down about it. Like it's okay. You just got to learn it. Like you just have to know what's going on in the thing, and you'll get it. Like I promise. You just have to stick with it. Don't just get it and then sell it 6 months later because you're like, fuck it. Like I don't like it. Like, it's just not for me. It could be for you. Really try to understand it first and read the fucking manual. Just read the goddamn manual. Like you will learn a lot just sitting there and just like going, oh, okay, that's what this is doing. And like a good synth manual to read to understand like what synths are doing. The microKORG manual is excellent. It's a really good manual, and that's what taught me how to use the thing in and out. And the microKORG is actually like, we may have a night doing the microKORG, because that thing is like, it's a sleeper. Like it's a great synth, and that's why it's kind of like one of those little cheap classics. But it's a dope synth. Like I've made some really dope stuff with that thing, and now that I'm understanding these synths better, the microKORG has opened up like completely new doors, and it's dope. But okay, I digress. Let's go back to our sound. Like I said, there's gonna be a lot of talking. I talk a lot. I'm Italian and Mexican. Can't help it. So, what are we like? What are we thinking here? Do we want to maybe take this? Do we want to maybe do a sequence? Because some people were talking about having trouble using the sequencers. Maybe we'll do that. Okay, let's see what kind of sequence. And this is the thing. Like, I'm not like a crazy like excellent sequence maker, but I do what I can, and I end up with some cool stuff here and there. A lot of time I do like kind of weird syncopated stuff that I don't always mean to do, but when people hear it and they say it's sick, I tell them, oh yeah, I totally like syncopated that. I did that. That was me. I totally did that on purpose. Like we all do. Don't act like you don't. Okay, so let's just take these basic chords I've kind of been playing here. We're just going to make a short kind of like 16-step sequence. We're not going to go all 60. We're not going to get nuts, but we're going to do a poly sequence here just so we can kind of mess with it. One thing I do wish this thing had was a little bit of motion control. I would have gladly paid another $200 or $300 to have a bigger screen and motion control on parts of the sequence. But you can kind of do that with the gated sequence. And again, like It's not really what Dave was trying to do with this one. So it's a Prophet. It's not a Prophet X. It's a Prophet. Like it's pretty much just an updated Prophet 5 with 16 voices rather. So sequence. What chords do we want to start with here? Let's go basic. Let's just be real simple here. So one thing I wish I could hold chords and it would know like to just hold that out, but the sequencer isn't that complex. It's trigger. So 6-note trigger. So we have a chord that hit. Maybe like let's go like dun 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 dun, like 3 notes afterwards, and then another chord. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna put rest and stuff. So we're not gonna hear all 3 of those notes every time, but we're just gonna put those 3 notes in just to go to the next first note on the next bar. So we're at 2. We're gonna need 2, 3, and 4. And those are gonna need to be 3 individual notes, maybe small 2-note harmonies like higher up, because you can do 6 notes, right? So we're gonna try that. We'll go. So now we're at 5. Now we need another chord for what we're doing here. So we're gonna go. We're gonna do the 5-note chord on this because the other one's a 6-note. Okay, so now we need. Dun, dun. So okay, here we're gonna make it. We're gonna we'll put some spice to it. So we're gonna dun, dun, and then we're gonna do the 6-note chord to give it like a little bit of lushness. There we go. So 1 note and then 6-note chord. 8, 9. So okay, now we're at the first bar, or the first note of the 3rd bar. And we just did a single note, so we can go back to a chord again. So we'll do another chord. Let's add a little different, like bring up the dissonance a little bit, but we're still in key here. And then we're gonna do a chord. So we're at 11 now. We did an individual note for 10. Two-note chord. So that's 16 notes. So the thing is like you gotta like think about putting chords on the up, like the 3 and the 1, to kind of start getting a feel for like the sequencer, because you're not gonna make great sequences like off the bat, like if you don't really use it at all. I still have a hard time doing that because it doesn't really show you a whole lot. There's not really a whole lot of like information. It just says like, hey, here's like a note you played in that 6 note. It just says like D6. It doesn't give you like an actual like kind of display. Maybe in the editor. I haven't actually used the editor, so I couldn't tell you. Okay, so we have our sequence. Let's like just listen to it. It's gonna start off on 16th notes. I don't think you can even see the screen. It says 16th notes. We're gonna just bring it to 8th notes just to keep it like slower. And we're gonna bring the tempo down to like 88, just like 84. I like 84. I like 80s and stuff like that, tempos. I wasn't there for the 80s, so I'm not gonna get all 80s about it, but now one thing, I wish you could affect the gate length on each of these. And I want to update it so I can get these sequences output MIDI, but I haven't been able to update the operating system on this yet, the firmware and all that. So here, we're going to bring the attack. We're going to look at where our attack and our release are. We're going to bring these down just so you can hear them. Simple, real simple, right? We're going to take that key sync off the LFO that's modulating the delay. Now we're going to go reverse saw. Now that we're using a sequence, let's clock sync this. We're gonna sync the that modulated the LFO that's modulating the delay time. We're gonna bring that in. Let's just do 8 steps. Just make it simple. Like we're not trying to get crazy. Like I'm not trying to change your life here. I'm just trying to show you how to use this thing. So let's hear it like way up. Let's experiment a little. We want to hear it. We want to hear what it's doing. You don't want to deny the fact that there are, there's settings in places you haven't tried, even though it's a little absurd to turn it up that high. Okay, that's cool, but maybe later. Like, let's subtleties here. So we can count on that down tuning happening every time. And this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to do this for people that are trying to be musical with this thing because they're having a hard time getting music out of it apparently. So, and that's okay. Again, that's okay. But right now we're clock syncing things. Let's clock sync the delay and see what kind of changes we get. And again, there's no rests, this is just a straight 8th note sequence, 16 notes, or 16 beats, with no rests, no ties. This is just the basic sequence at 8th notes. So it's sounding like, to me, that the amount we have the LFO at, which is 3, that's modulating the delay time, is not enough to actually change the divisions. So here, we're gonna bring it up. Let's see what we can get. Okay, so here, check this out. It doesn't actually affect it. I've never actually been able to solidify that in my head, if it ever was, because usually when I start doing stuff like that, the sound is kind of beyond, you're not going to notice that that's the delay doing what it is. So, okay, there's something I've actually kind of figured out too. When you have the delay clock sync, the LFO does not modulate it. It won't modulate it. So we're going to bring this back to 3 where we had it, and we're going to turn the clock sync on the delay off, because I kind of liked it without it. But the LFO's clock sync, so we're getting like a solid variation. But maybe let's smear it a little more and bring it out. Like we'll turn it up to, it was at 3, let's turn it to 5. I'm getting daring. See, this is the type of sound because, here's a little engineering tip. Sine waves have an extremely high dynamic range because they are the full fundamental of a pitch. So like a clean guitar compared to a distorted guitar, because distortion is technically like compressed, even though it's really loud, it's still compressing because the sound can only reach a certain point through that speaker set. So a clean guitar is going to actually have more dynamic range and be louder than than something that's not. So using sine waves, your fidelity is going to be very like heavy. Like the sine waves take up a lot of space. Actually, that's why subs are sine waves generally. They take up a lot of space. So what you want to make sure is maybe bring your sustain down, like bring your volume out, because what happens is with the delay and all, you start to get release and the sounds start to mesh together, but you'll start to just get like a hodgepodge of just shit. And it won't sound good anymore, and you're just like, man, it was a cool sound, but what happened? Bring your sustain down. Just turn your volumes down. I'm a big advocate of subtractive mixing, so like just bring your volumes down, and your sustain is kind of a big chunk of your volume. So like work with that, and you'll start to find that like you're able to like shape things a lot better. Like work with your sustain at lower levels. Like work with the decay, because sounds do not sustain forever in real life. They end. Like sounds have a decay. They end. So it's like only in like our abstract world, in our mind, things like happen in a constant that you know, like a musical pitch, and in the form of like a musical sound, like an acoustic guitar or a drum or something like that. If you want to get into other heady shit, I'm gonna have to start another YouTube channel to get into like whatever else. But like we're just talking about like music, basic music right now. Drones are like things that we have to do. Normal sounds have a decay and a lifespan. So it's like start working with that sustain. Like you'll see that your sounds clean up actually. Here we go. I like that. I really like that. Oh, okay. Hey, look, we have a question. We got a question. Can you go over the sequencer? What stand are you using? Okay, yeah. Here, we are on the sequencer right now. Here. Which sequencer? Polly. Okay, so I'm gonna call you Tim, okay? Tim. Right now I have the poly sequence going. And again, I'm sorry for there's gonna be a little bit of a delay, and I'm gonna do my best to keep this concise. I don't want to waste your time. And I thank you for tuning in as well. Let me take a sip of my drink, hit this vape, and we're gonna talk. I'm a creature of habit. Okay, so right now the sequence that I have going, and then I would suggest like around this point in the thing too, like I go over it a little bit, but I'll reiterate it for you. I made a sequence at 16 notes, and right now we are at 73 beats a minute, and the sequence is in eighth note divisions. I have not edited the sequence in any way other than playing the chords. So you're still like at kind of the beginning of this, because this is why I made the sound. You don't have to fast forward though. Oh yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. If you catch up, let me know. I'll actually wait. It's not like I have. Yeah. Okay, so here. Again, very, very basic sequence. We have it in eighth note divisions. We have not edited any of the sequence. We haven't done. What the hell is this? Okay. Sorry. My cousin. We haven't edited the sequence. I haven't changed anything. It's literally, so I play a chord, and I suggest playing. So like think of the just at four 4-bar chunks on a 16 note sequence, 16 step sequence. Sorry. Excuse me. And then what you want to do is like play a chord on that first step, like, and this is basic shit, basic chord on that first step. 1, 2, 3 individual notes, or very basic, like maybe 2-note kind of like harmonies on 1 or 2 of those 3 added steps. So that takes you to the end of the bar. And on that next bar, play another chord on the first step, and then do that 1, 2, 3 notes to the next first step of the next third bar. Kind of continue that until you finish all 4 bars. Give yourself, a little variation. Maybe play, like I said, 2, 1, or, like 1 or 2 of those steps between the chords have a 2-note harmony. and just transition it to each chord, but don't try to overthink it because you can get real weird with it. Just kind of find yourself, sorry, I was just reading the screen. Find yourself just a good cognitive sequence that's not, you're not going to get Aphex Twin with it right away. So you just find yourself something basic, which like we have here. I'm going to turn the delay off just for the sake of right now. Okay, and we're gonna make this a little more so we can actually get into the sequence. We're gonna make it a little more staccato because it's like when you start getting into more complex sequencing, these languid sounds aren't really the languid like long attacks and drawn out stuff. It doesn't really work as well. You can still get it, but you're not gonna notice like your effort. So what we want to do is we want to go back into record here. Don't touch any keys. Don't touch it. What you want to do is you would look at your step. And don't touch the track, just go parameter because the parameter is going to push you through your steps. What you want to do is you want to go look at your step. You want to go 1. Well, how do you want your rhythm? Well, think about this. Here we go. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of like abstractions with this. Excuse me. Think about how you want your rhythm to go. Because right now it's just going da 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 pretty much. What do you want it to be like? Da da. Da, da, da. Like, how do you want your sequence to happen? So, like, think about this. Like, a rest, the note's going to stop. A tie, it's going to hold the note to the next step. So, if you tie a note, it's going to hold for, let's say, like right now we have 8th notes. It's going to tie for 2 8th notes, so a quarter note. At that point, it's going to move to the next step. And it's going to pretty much omit the step you had on that. If you're going to make a tie, it's going to omit it. So like what you can do on the sequencer, you don't have to hit each note in. Like you can leave spaces. You can go to the sequencer and then just go to the next step and hit notes and then just tell it rest. Like you can omit stuff on the sequencer and make more complex stuff. But it's like if you start with just your 16, the pieces that you want, it'll push things around for you. But again, like you're going to overlap and you're going to lose other chords for rests and ties. So I hope I didn't hit that, but whatever. So we have our first step. Let's do a step, rest, step, step. So we're going to do step, rest, step, step. Now we're on step 1 of the second measure. So we're going to go, duh. Let's do a tie. So we're going to, so here, okay, here's one thing. I'm not 100% sure. I think if you tie on, like, let's say we're on step 5 like we are right now. If you tie on step 5, I don't know if that pulls from step 4 or it ties step 5 to step 6. That's a question. Like, that's a question I have in my head, and I've never actually paid attention to it or thought about it until right now. I generally kind of use these things intuitively. I don't really think too much when I'm going about it. So it's actually honest. I'm gonna be honest. Like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm just here to show you like through this thing. I'm just a dude. But I'm not 100% sure which part it ties. But that's something actually. That might be a forum thing. It might be on the forum, or it might be something to email Dave Smith about. But let's, for the sake saying that we want step 6 to sound like step 5, I'm gonna move to step 6 and we're gonna hit tie. And I'm going to assume that that's going to make step 6 sound like step 5. And then we're going to rest on step 7. Let step 8 play. Let step 9 play. And then we're going to rest on step 10. Step 11, 12, 13. 13 is going to be your 14, 15, 16. So 12 is going to be the first step of the next thing. So we have 12, 13's a rest. Let's tie 14 to 15. And then 16 and 17 will play naturally. And then hit record and you're done. You're done editing the poly sequencer. All right, Tim, I hope you're with us right now. I don't want to go too fast, but at the same time, it's like I'm just gonna trust that you found the spot, and maybe you'll go back and find some spots. I believe in you. So let's hear it now. Let's hear what we have. No delay. Okay, yeah, hey, that's cool. That's workable. Alright, so check this out. We're gonna start doing a little bit now that this can start playing and I can let it kind of do some stuff. Let's turn I think our envelope is still cycling up here because I haven't used it for anything. Okay, no it isn't. Okay, we're good. Okay, now we're gonna do the audio mod thing here. Alright, there we go. A little bit of attack. I'm gonna let that play out for a sec. I gotta get another sip of water here. Notice how that cutoff will change your pitch. Back to where we were. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So all you have to do, I mean, like, there's a way you can do it. Like, if you're real anal about things, I kind of like this sequence, so I'm gonna we're not gonna erase it quite yet. But what you can do is you can hit record and literally just hit like C, like middle C, up until you get like to however many steps that sequence was, and that'll completely just take it, like it'll take it to C. Or you can just hit rest on every single thing, and that'll like erase it pretty much. But you hit record, and when you're done, you hit record again, and that saves the sequence. It's really, really easy because it's like, okay, here, I'll just show you how to do that. So we have our sequence, right? So let's change it. Let's just go, let's do a new scale. And now everything's gone. So there, like, that's how to, like, you, like, that old sequence is now gone. Like, the new one replaced it. All you have to do is like record over it and it goes away. And if you change the preset, let's say you recorded something, you made a sound and you made a sequence, and you're like, oh cool, and you save it. If you make a new sequence and change the program, that new sequence will be gone. Like, it won't be there anymore. So that will like bring back the sequence you had saved initially. You have to save it each time you change the sequence. Yes, it's very simple. Yes. Oh, and the stand. Sorry, I'm just answering a question. The stand is just like your general like A-frame stand. It's a 3-tier. I have one of the tiers doesn't have anything on it because I don't have enough synths. But these two, I have the 2-tier. I have the arms from the 3rd tier up on this second thing because it's like I just have an MS-20 and a micro cork here. 1 second. Okay. Had to answer a question in real life. Okay. So, okay. If we don't have any other questions pertaining to that. So we have our sound. This is just the filter too. There's like, again, like I can reiterate what we're doing here for people that are just kind of jumping in maybe right now that haven't rewound or anything. Right now, this is just a sound I've made with the filter tracking. You use the key amount, you bring it up halfway. You can hold a MISC parameter and you can turn a knob and wiggle it, turn it, wiggle it, whatever, and it will show you what value that knob is at. So you can kind of like turn it, like if you don't like the way the knob setting is, you can kind of just turn it, oh, okay, 64, that's about over here. And rather than it jumping, and you can have it pass through, like you can have it, so you have to actually turn it to where it was before it'll change it. But like if you don't really want to change that, you kind of like how it's set, you can just hold the MISC parameter and turn the knob and it'll show you the value that knob's set up for the preset. Which is a cool kind of little feature because there are actually a lot of like mod points on here. There's a lot of knobs. Okay, so with that, like let's start using the audio mod. We're gonna bring back, so like I said in the beginning, if you haven't rewound or you haven't watched this from the beginning or whatever, oscillator 1 pitch is tied to the audio mod here. So you just have to turn the oscillator on. I have no oscillators on. And to make sure that the oscillator doesn't pass through the filter to actually affect the sound, we're going to turn the noise down a little just to get the cleaner FM. Make sure that the oscillator isn't passing through the filter section. Like you can just turn to oscillator 2 and make sure oscillator 2 is off. Like so right now the mix is just turned all the way to 2. Bring it to C6. So these are just the sine waves. Turn the delay off. Alright, so like right now that's just, like I said, like that's just FM. So let's go to this LFO2 that we have modulating. keep that up high. We'll go to LFO 3. We're going to go to oscillator frequency. Like, we're going to start getting strange here. So now we're modulating the oscillator frequency with the sawtooth, turning up the amount. I like sawtooth. Let's turn the delay off. So this thing can get pretty nutty. Like, it's not just bread and butter sounds. Well, I haven't done any bread and butter sounds. I haven't even used any of the oscillators yet. I've been talking for like an hour. Okay, so like again, that's literally just messing with 2 LFOs, or not even, like, because of the one of these LFOs is actually controlling the effects here. It's only messing with one LFO, the pitch of an oscillator, and the audio mod, like in the filter. That's it. Like, that's it. And you can get wild with it. Like, start getting like actual like sound effects out of the thing, and not just like a bow down, like, which, you know, it's great, but still, try things. Just try it, and you'll start to see like, oh, okay, like that's what this is doing. Like, listen to like what the stuff's doing. Like, don't worry so much about making a song. Like, you're not wasting time. Like, you're learning how to use your investment. You know, it's like I don't know, like, you don't buy a Ferrari and never wash it, right? Like, it's not like you're out driving it, showing it to everybody. Like, you're washing it. You're doing the grunt work. Like, this is the washing your Ferrari. Like, you're exploring all the details, like all the things that are presented in front of you. Like, that's a good opportunity to actually like learn about it. I know that's probably obnoxious, and I'm sorry, but sorry. Okay, doesn't look like we have that many people watching. If you guys have questions, again, guys, gals, others, again, no judgment. I don't care who you are. You're all great. Just if you guys have questions, just feel free. Just go ahead and comment on the chat. Go ahead and watch. I know there's it says there's a few people watching, but they may not all be in the same place. So again, feel free to ask questions. I'll turn my head back because I have another computer going, showing me what's going on in the chat. Okay, well, here, we're going to start over. Okay. Cycling envelope 3, repeat, on, envelope 3, auxiliary envelope is routed to oscillator pitch 1, oscillator 1 pitch. Okay, let's sync it now. Routed to oscillator 2, the envelope. Mod the shape here. Go to oscillator 1 shape on LFO 1. And just bring it up. Make it slow, but bring it up. You're gonna sit and act like that ain't sick. Like, that's dope. So there's another thing a lot of people don't seem to do that I don't see a lot of people do. Let's just turn the shape off the LFO. Let's just bring this back to like 2 saw waves coming through the mixer. Detune them a little bit. Keep the cutoff all the way up. Bring the filter amount negative. This is the attack going like down like that, like jump, jump. Like if you want thicker plucks, like you bring your envelope amount down, like bring it negative. Like you can hear the thump. There's no sub-octave happening here. Bring the shape mod back out on oscillator 1. Notice how that gives you a little more, like it sounds a little more like there's more appeal in there to me, like there's like there's like a scoop in there that just like see, but you got to match this sustain down at that level because otherwise it'll open back up. So you like. So I usually bring the sustain a little lower. But you put huge reverbs and delays on those, like. Those are where you get those big like poly stabs from. Again, we're like, here's some bread and butter shit for you. Any questions? Oh, okay. I have a Pro 2 and to add the Prophet 12 or Rev 2, do you have any insight? Have you tried the Prophet 12? How do they compare? I wish I had more time with the P12. It sounds a bit more sorry, bad typo there. It sounds a bit more like present. Like there's like a, it's not, there is a coldness to it, like a digitalness to it, but it's not like it's not because it's DCO. It's not DCO coldness. It's like there's a precision coldness to it, like because there's FM and stuff on it. Yeah, like that's where like I think people talk about the sterility in the synth is like its precision, because it's not like again, like it's not I mean, I don't know, because it's like honestly like it doesn't have a lot of fluctuation, it doesn't have a lot of movement, like it's tuned, like it's a tuned instrument, like it's not gonna really crap out on you. And some people kind of like the crapping out. I mean, I like it too, but if I'm buying something brand new, it's like, let me, you know, make it sound kind of like crapping out. Like, give me the features to make it sound like it's crapping out. I don't want to buy a new thing that sounds like it's crapping out already. Like, and that's why I went for a Dave Smith thing, because it's like they're pretty precise and they're pretty, like, they're solid. I don't have a lot of experience with the Prophet 12. I've played it a couple times and I really liked it. I want one, but it does have like more of a sterility to it, in the sense that it's got so many FM features. It has to be very like like almost digital level precision. And it does have DCOs. I don't have a problem with I don't care. Yeah, I want my shit to stay in tune so I can control it and have enough control over it so I can detune it. That's a big part of it. But yeah, I don't think the Prophet 12 sounds that much like the Rev2. And like you were saying, Tim says it sounds like a Prophet 5. I haven't played an actual Prophet 5, so I couldn't tell you. I've only seen videos. Prophet 12, how do they compare? Prophet 12 has a lot more features, but you're also going to pay another $1,000 to what is it, like $3,100 for that? You're going to pay a lot, like a whole other synth more for a Prophet 12. This is like your basic like V8 Mustang, like V8 Camaro. It's not. It doesn't have the DVD in their headrests. It doesn't have, you know, the touchscreen navigation. Like, it's literally just like the engine with enough shit to really get you going. It's very straightforward. And this is why I say it's very straightforward, because if you look at like the Prophet 12, or you look at like Waldorf Blofeld, like look inside one of those. It's a polyphonic modular in a box. Like, look at it, like the microKORG has more complex features than this thing, in a sense. This is analog. Like the LFOs, everything's digitally generated, I'm sure, but it's all like when it comes down to the voltages, like electrons are electrons. Like, it doesn't have anything. The LFOs are affecting an analog circuit path, so it's like you're not really you know, and it's like, that's the thing. It's like, oh, that's a digital LFO. As long as it doesn't step, like, it's not like you hear an LFO. Don't, you know, like, people are going to sit like, I don't like digital utility. And it's like, that's stupid, because it has to go through a converter to become electronic anyways. As long as it's got a good converter where it's not aliasing, where it's not intended to alias, and you have, you know, voltage coming out of a DAC, like, you're gonna be fine. Like, it's a lot of it literally is just, a lot of stuff is like, okay, here you go. Y'all like Moog, right? Like the Moog Minotaur has digital envelopes. What do you think about that? All the utilities in a Moog Minotaur, they're digital. They're all digital. It's an analog signal path, just like this. But I can guarantee that this analog, like this envelope, it's probably digital. This envelope, it's probably digital. This, it's probably digital. Like, the fact is that it has to come out of a good converter to hit the circuit anyways, so it's still delivering an analog voltage, and it's not like, that's like, okay, bad analogy time, because I like making bad analogies. Here we go. So, let's say you have some shades, some window shades, some blinds. Let's say you have one window that you have to go pull the crank to lift the blinds. One window you have to... you have a remote that will lift the blinds itself or open in some other way. The sunlight that comes through is still the same. The blinds still are letting the same thing through. It's just one is controlled with a computer, the other one is controlled with a manual like in a manual situation. Again, bad analogy. Like I said, I warned you, but it's kind of that same thing. You're not like you're not faking the sunlight. Like, all the sunlight's real, but the way you get the sunlight in and out is different. Like, the way you're allowing the sunlight in and out is controlled in a different way. And to me, it's a decent analogy because it makes sense, because it's it just works. Again, I need another sip of water. Hold on. All right, I'm back. It's time for another beer. Okay, we have another question. I agree, my Pro 2 is sharp, tight, and digital in a good way. Yes, I really actually like the Pro 2. Okay. So, I meant the sound you were just playing on the Rev2 sounded like a P5. Oh, okay, I had a Moog source that went out of tune constantly. Yeah. Moog stuff from the past tends to... I got no personal issues with companies like... I'll state the fact, like, oh yeah, you know, like, something happened, like, that company doesn't, like, old Moog stuff doesn't stay in tune. There's a lot of other stuff that doesn't stay in tune. I have some modules that don't stay in tune. It's just the state of it. I'm not talking shit. I'm not going to say anything bad about the company. It's just, that's the fact of the matter. But, okay, so let's see where we're at here. I'm kind of, interested. Like, let's go through, like, the envelopes. Let's go through, like, modding envelopes and stuff. So let's bring this back out. Let's, like, it's easier to work with the positive values. Alright, we're gonna make another sequence just so I can, like, I don't have to keep playing to demonstrate, like, what this is doing here. Okay, here, we're just... Okay. So, okay, what we're gonna do with this here, I'm gonna start showing you how to mod these envelopes. Like, we're gonna start getting more interesting textures out of this. So this is one where you might want the decay low, the attack down, bring the pan spread out a little bit, envelope amount, and then bring the velocity up a bit. Let's let the sound breathe a little bit. You'll notice, like, you'll see what I'm doing here. So let's go to the LFO 1. We're gonna go out to our filter envelope decay. It's like, look, you can mod all these fucking features, bro. Like, this is like, woohoo. This is huge. Like, if I felt like moving my camera or I could get it back into a good position, I'd show you all of the envelopes I have in my modular, like, with modulatable parameters. Like, modding envelopes will get you some of the dopest stuff, I promise. So let's take a sawtooth. And we want to clock sync this. Don't key sync it, but clock sync it. And then we're gonna bring it, we have it on the low pass filter decay. But our mount is all the way up. So with these parameters, what you want to do is like, the higher your actual, once you've routed an LFO to a parameter, the more you turn that parameter up. Think of it now as kind of a VCA control for that parameter. So it's like, if your decay is down real low and you put an LFO on it, like, okay, here, if you can see my hand, like, if your decay is, like, let's say it's down low and you put an LFO on it, it's not gonna go like like that to the LFO rhythm. It's gonna go like from its maximum point down. So it's going from 0 to its maximum point. So if you have the LFO or the parameter, like we have the decay right now way up, it's gonna take that LFO and move through that. So the decay knob, now that it has an LFO routed to it, is now going to become almost a level control for that modulation, as well as the amount of the LFO. So it's like, you can really fine tune. Like, this is cool. Like, this is cool. And a lot of people are going to get kind of confused on stuff like this. Like, but this is a cool fucking feature. Again, I'm sorry to swear, but like, I'm a few beers in. We're talking about synths. I'm excited. I'm sorry. Like, I don't, I'm not going to censor myself. They're just curse words. They're not opinions. But anyways, so okay, let's play our sequence now. Let's turn the LFO up. Oh, do you notice this now? Are you noticing this? So you see this flashing? You see this flashing right here? I'm gonna cover it up and look back at the screen. So like, check this out. This is cool. So we're gonna right now. So here, let me stop this. I don't mind if it's going, but I'm gonna stop it for the sake because I just want to be somewhat considerate. So right now, this is the LFO decay. Again, if you miss this point, if you hold MISIC parameters and turn a knob, it will let you look at the value that knob's set at without messing up the setting you have. Cool feature. So it's at 3 steps. Let's bring it to 4. And this is a sawtooth LFO controlling the decay on the filter envelope. Let's bring the decay out more. Like I said, it's like almost like a level control because it's controlling the maximum that the LFO is running through. Oh, here. Okay. Here's a little abstraction tangent for you. It's applicable to what we're doing. So, okay, you know how like you'll go on Massive, like Native Instruments Massive, when you put that parameter control, that modulation, and it shows you like the negative and positive value. So like I thought that that's kind of how a lot of synths work, and they don't. The analog synths don't generally work in that control from my experience. I'm not going to say this for every single analog synthesizer, but I've noticed that's kind of what happens is the knob you're modulating with like a source becomes kind of a level control for the maximum point. And it's how an envelope works. Like when you're doing a filter cutoff, the envelope amount correlates to the maximum point that your cutoff is set. So if your cutoff is set all the way up and if your cutoff is set all the way up and your filter amount is all the way up, the attack stage is going to reach all the way to the very peak of the filter opening before it starts to decay down to the sustain point, and the sustain point will correlate to the filter amount. So it will never go or down or change. If your sustain is all the way up and your filter amount's all the way up, like it'll never change. So like when you have filter amount, like let's say your filter amount's at 50%, let's say your filter is all the way up. Your filter amount is at 50%. And then your sustain is at 50%. So then your sustain is actually 25% of the filter's cutoff. Like your sustain correlates to the envelope amount. The amount the envelope opens from the cutoff point is your envelope amount. And then your cutoff point is the minimum and maximum travel. So if like your cutoff's all the way down, it's going to go from all the way down to the filter envelope amount and then sustain at the sustain level. I hope that makes sense. It's really easy in my head, and I might actually do a video on it because I could kind of talk about it for a while. But that's how envelopes work on all parameters. Like your sustain correlates to the amount, but the amount also correlates to the cutoff. So they're all tied together. Like your cutoff does not mean, like if you're at 50% cutoff, it does not mean you're at 50% sustain. If you're at 50% envelope amount, it does not mean you're at 50% cutoff. Like those don't correlate like that. It's a matter of like, where does it start? Where does it go? Where does it stay as long as a key pressed? And where does it fall from when the release stage occurs? Again, if this becomes more of a desired topic, we'll go into it and I'll do Eurorack examples. Like I'll go really, really deep into it. But right now we're talking about this whole synth. But like I said earlier, like I said earlier, the envelopes are your main weapon in this, besides the LFOs and the mod matrix. So if you're not using the envelopes, you're really missing out on a lot of the functionality. And just because your VCA or your filter's set a certain way doesn't mean you can't use that envelope to do another thing. And a lot of times you want to have synonymous envelopes for certain functions because they'll work within that shaping parameter, that time frame. So that's another big thing. So, but okay, so that's our tangent. Let's go back to our sequence where we have the LFO modulating the decay on the filter. And we're going to do more. We're going to modulate the release. We're going to chop this shit up. Like we're going to get into it here. So let's bring our sustain out. LFO2. Turn this off for your sake. Again, I don't mind it, but I know that some people are just like, God, shut that up. My mom, when she hears stuff like this, she's just like, shut up. She can't stand it. So we're gonna go to our release on envelope, low pass filter release. Let's start with a square wave. The square waves are actually fun to use. I wish there was actually like a slew path in this that didn't require the sequencer. The gated sequencer is actually, in my opinion, in this thing, way more complex than the poly sequencer. And there's a lot of really cool stuff. I might do a stream where I go into that more. I haven't actually used the gated sequencer in a song of mine, so I can't really like give you a lot of like real world examples. Jesus. Sorry, I have again, 3 beers. It'll do it. So I can't really give you a whole lot of examples, but let's clock sync this second LFO that's routed to our envelope release. Maybe we might do the VCA as well. Like, there's actually a way to really get things kind of like really choppy. We might do some synonymous, some like parody modulations, what we have going on with the envelope filter here with the amp filter, because that's a huge part of it too. So, so we have this going. We have this, I think we have it routed now to the release. Yeah, no amount, 16, it's set at 16 steps, and we have the square. So let's play the sequence. And now we're at 2 steps. And see, yeah, you're not really like, it's different. Like, you can hear it, but it's not really doing a whole lot without the envelope on the amplifier changing as well. So what we maybe want to do is we want to bring the envelope's presence in a little bit. Yeah, okay, so we can hear it. I think we're going to mod that too. We're going to go into the mod matrix, and we're going to take, like I said, the parity of it. So it's LFO2. We're going to take our source, LFO2. If you hold source and then hit 2, like hit whatever thing or wiggle, like let's say we don't want it on LFO2. Let's say we want the filter, the envelope amount from the auxiliary envelope to mod it. We can hold source, turn destination, and now it changes to envelope 3. But we want LFO2. So we're going to hold source and hit 2, and that routes it to LFO2. Now our destination is going to be the release here. Or I'm sorry, not on the filter release. It's going to be on the VCA release. So let's play it, and we're going to tune it down. We're going to tune it up to get it sound right. Sorry, I messed that up. That's why it wasn't work. I was like, what the hell's going on here? We want, yeah, we have LFO2 affecting, but we actually want now to decay release. Oh, okay, yeah. We had LFO2. Yeah, that's proper still. Maybe let's try a different one. The square doesn't seem to be doing really like what I'm hoping it for. Oh, there we go. Let's bring one of these oscillators up a fifth. And the delay is a huge thing. Like, people sleep on this delay function. Check this out. I wish you could modulate it. But it gives it, like, so much more character. Like, subtle, really subtle, discretionary character. Like for real. Like, you motherfuckers hear this shit, they be like, damn, bro, how you do that? Like, literally, the delay will, like, change your settings and all this shit. Listen to that, dude. That sounds great. And I made that. Like, I'm a fucking idiot. Let's turn this some delay. Let's get some effects on it. Like, check this out. We'll clock sync some delay. So here, we're gonna go to the mod wheel. That's gonna be our filter cutoff. We're gonna bring it up a lot. Check this out. Okay, so that gets to be way too much. That's way too much. Like, it's cool. Like, it's cool for, like, an ending of something, but not something that's playable. So we're going to go to our mod slot 2. Source is the mod wheel. And what that's going to do... Okay, so here's the thing. We can have this either turn down the modulation points, like turn down the modulation on the LFOs that goes to the envelope functions, or we can just turn down the amount of those functions on the envelopes. Let's start with just turning down the release on both of those envelopes with the mod wheel, and if that doesn't give us what we want, we're going to go with turning down the modulation levels on those mod points, rather than turning down the functions themselves. So here, we're going to go destination, low pass filter release, and then mod slot 3. Source is going to be the mod. Oh yeah, you can only do it a couple times. Where there's only enough RAM to tell it to go from that point. So once you've patched it through that source, like hold and move little quick hotkey function, it only does it once. Like, you can't do it for a bunch of other. You have to set it through the menu and scroll. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our low pass filter release. Or no, this is going to be our VCA release on the mod. Yeah, okay. And then the low pass filter release. We already have it set. Okay. So we're going to just turn these way the fuck down. Like, all the way down, just to see how they sound. Okay. So we actually want to go all the way up, because the all the way up will give you a negative result. Okay. Forgot. And see, that delay on the filter makes things change. So let's listen to our delay on the filter. It's 10. We're going to bring that to the VCA. Oh, the VCA won't even fucking trigger at that point. Okay, that's fine. Let's just bring the delays down. VCA amount. Now we're going to do the low pass filter amount. you know what? I got 2 sets of the VCA release. Oh yeah, that's why, because it's the mod wheel. Let me answer a question, sorry. Can each step in sequence have its own modulation destination? No, sadly. Yeah, sadly it won't do that. It doesn't have a parameter lock or like a motion control or anything like that, which the Korg stuff does, which I think they kind of got them over on that. But the whole Korg Prolapse, that thing it sounds cool. I didn't talk shit on it last time, but I'm gonna talk some shit on it right now because I love Korg too. I don't have a problem with Korg as a company, but the Prolapse is just the you're gonna give me one LFO on a 16 voice polysynth and put a compressor on it, like what? Like you're gonna put a compressor on my synthesizer? Okay, maybe as a destructive effect, I could see. But I'm sorry. Like, if I'm gonna put a $2,000 synthesizer through a compressor, the compressor is gonna cost as much as the synthesizer. Like, unless it's a VST, just to get things to level out. Like, I don't care about a hardware compressor on my synth. Sorry. Like, I don't know. And I'm sure some people have made use of it, and that's fine. I'm not gonna sit and say that it doesn't make good sounds. It sounds good. But that thing has got so many gimmicks on it because Korg rushed it. And I was actually like upset, like, oh shit, should I have waited? Because I waited for a Korg. And I went out and bought this instead because Korg didn't release anything. And then 2 months later, they're like, oh, here's the prologue. And I looked at it and I was like, oh shit. And no, I'm glad I have this because the Korg prologue did not go down. I don't hear a bunch of people talking about it. I don't hear people going nuts over it. I don't see people on the forums like considering it as a secondary option to buying this. Dude, like literally, you gave me 2 envelopes and 1 LFO to modulate a 16 voice polysynth. Oh, but we gave you some virtual oscillator that plays samples. It's like, and 1 LFO for 2 envelopes. And you only gave me like 7 routing. Like there's only like, you can only route the envelope to like certain specific things. You can only route the LFO to certain specific things. It's like super locked in. Now for like $1,200, killer synth. Killer polysynth for $1,200. You want $2,000 for this. And I think they initially wanted more for the 16 voice, more than 2,000 for the 16 voice. I'm like, are you fucking high? Like what? No, it just doesn't. I'm sorry, that just does. I love you, Korg, but that just does not make any sense. And I don't think that synth is going to go down in history. It's just going to be a synth that gets made and Korg's like, hey, we did it, which is cool. But I'd rather pay $1,800 for a Poly 6 than that Prolapse. I don't care. Like, if I have to put another envelope and another LFO into the Poly 6 and do it myself, I'd rather do that than buy the Prologue. That's my honest opinion. Like, my friend's done that. I've seen the overhaul it takes to do that, to put a Kenton kit in it, put an extra envelope and noise structure, to actually make the thing modern with the right accoutrements to actually, like, really do serious sound design. Like, it takes a little bit of work. Like, it doesn't just come like that. But I'd rather do that than buy the Prologue. I think Korg kind of rushed the functions and kept it way too close to the mini log and the mono log. Like, they needed to understand it's like, no. Like, make a synth that has, like, the poly features. Put 2 digital oscillators and 1 analog oscillators in a poly synth. Don't put 2 analog oscillators and then some random digital oscillator in a poly synth and then only give you, like, 3 modulation sources. Like, no. Like, don't do, like, just no. Like, and the effects and the sequencer, I'm sure, are great, and that's what they're focusing on. But it's like, when it really gets down to it, if you want to play the thing, and maybe I'll compromise here on this. Maybe the difference is that this is like something you play and that's where the expressivity and comes from, is you. Whereas the Korg is like gives you a bunch of features and a bunch of weird little like things to fuck with to make the sound. Like maybe that's, again, different companies, different approaches, different philosophies. Like I'm getting a little down on it. But that's kind of like where I felt about the Prologue. It was just kind of like, nah, man. Like, and it sounds great. It's a cool synth, and I'm sure people get fucking great sounds with it. Like, I'm sure it's a great synth. But where my brain went initially, it was just like, nah, fuck this thing. Like, this is like so much money for like literally just a big ass mini log and another oscillator. And then the Korg developer thing, which they didn't really give anybody a lot of detail about. Like, you're like, okay, well, that's cool and all, but that's only like cool for coders. I don't know. I feel like they missed the mark with it, whereas this is just kind of like, they put this out and it was just like, yeah, it makes sense. It just fit right in. Like, it made total sense to everybody, like, using synthesizers, where the Prologue, I don't think, I mean, I don't have any conversations other than, like, this type of, like, tonality about the Prologue with anybody. Like, if I'm talking about the Prologue, it's me bitching to them and then bitching to, it's like an echo chamber of like, yeah, nah, I didn't really think that was really well thought out. Cool synth. I just don't, I think they could have gone a few ways with it that they didn't end up doing. But Prologue, meh. Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, so I digress. Let's get back to this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that's cool. Let's shape the waves a little bit. Let's maybe make the sound a little more characterful. Let's get squishy. To a chorus, or actually let's do the I like the maestro phaser. Yeah, that sounds dope. Hey, well, if you're watching and you just subscribed, thank you. I've gotten a few new subscribers on this stream. All right, that to me sounds pretty dope. Like, I think that sounds really good. Let me toot my own horn a little. No, like, but for real, like, no, this thing, like, this, if you own the synth, like, you have a very dope instrument. Like, if you own anything like Dave Smith, no, okay, you know what? Like, I'm gonna digress even more. If you own some, like, decent synthesizers that isn't like an Akai Timberwolf, you own some dope shit. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like, I've had some Vocals, and I'm not going to go into that. They're not my thing, but you can do stuff with them. Like, now that they have, I think, MIDI control on some of the newer ones. My buddy has some of the newer, like, stuff that came out, like, this year and, like, or late last year or whatever. Some of that stuff's pretty cool. But if, like, you have something similar to this or some other Dave Smith instrument, you have some very dope shit. Like, you have some cream of the crop fucking indoor top shelf. Like, that's some raw. Like, you can make sick sounds. Like, I believe in you. Be a synthesist. Follow through. Read that fucking manual. Like, you can do this. I'm sorry. Like, now the alcohol is hitting me and I'm excited. So, okay. This is sick. It's nice and squishy. That phaser's sick. Let's keep it where it is. I'm not gonna... Don't get ahead of myself here. Let's mess with the sync. So like, let's listen to like what the sync can do to your sound. So right now, this is pretty cool. Okay, let me get a sip of water. Let me turn this down. I'm gonna let you guys listen to this. Let me find a nice division for this here, because we're just running off this thing's internal clock. Ooh, that 12. See, and that's the thing too. Here, before I get my sip of water real quick. That's a thing I think a lot of people might be missing too. This 12 decibel filter sounds great. I didn't use it for the longest time because I liked it how the 24 grabbed the sound and just really gave me what I wanted. But I noticed like a lot of the stuff was just kind of all staccato and the same. But the 12 decibel filter has just like this light, very light, like vinaigrette level, not ranch dressing, but like a vinaigrette little bit of smudge, like just a little, just over the top, just a drip over the top, and it sounds real nice. Like I really overlooked it for a long time. I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't really try to like. I was like, yeah, I want something to grab. Like I use 24 decibels filter in Eurorack. Like this is, I know everything. I'm a goddamn synthesist. Like no, like dude, the 12, like actually, like really, like they both sound great. Like I'm not gonna tell you which one's better, but the 12 will. You might think that the 24 is gonna have all that punch and grab that you like, but sometimes the 12 has the right amount of smudge to just let that low end through. That a little. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so enjoy that for a second. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna mess with the sync now. A lot of people, I noticed, like they'll complain about the sync because they'll put it on an LFO or something. Like they'll put the oscillate. They won't know where to like kind of reach to. Hit that envelope. Hit that motherfucking envelope. Like you go up to oscillator frequency 1. Just sync them. Oscillator 1's already a fifth above oscillator 2, so it's gonna have a different like. Notice there's like a woodiness to it now. It's subtle. Like you may not notice it. Notice. Here you go. Oh yeah, dude. Like I hear you on that. Like the effects. Yeah. Here, I'll. I agree with you. I do. Hey, what happened to my chat? Oh, there it is. Whoa. I think a lot of people complain about the effects because they'll plug a Strymon in and be like, "Oh, well, this is so much better." It's like, yeah, you have a fucking $500 reverb pedal, like on like at the end of this, like it's a $500 reverb. That's a quarter of the cost of this entire piece of equipment. I think people complain about the effects because they just don't know how to use the synth. Like people complain because fear is based off the unknown. People's complaints come from the fear that they've made a bad investment. So they're going to complain because they're not going to get the result that they wanted or initially. Like they have this idea in their head. And I say this because I used to be this type of person too. Like I'm not going to act like my brain didn't go there when I was younger. Or maybe less experience, because some of these people are older than me. They just don't have as much experience. They haven't thrown their life away like I have to to dig into this. And that's okay. Like, you know, it's like priorities. A lot of these people are, you know, might have kids or might be actually married or something. Like it might actually be fortunate enough to have somebody love them. But like, I don't. So I just spend my time doing this shit and learning and hitting my head against the wall and writing songs. I learn so much about these synths when I make music and I start to understand. Like once I made an entire song with just my modular doing the drums, I made hi-hats with this and then sampled it out, and then every other sound was this Prophet Rev2. That's when I knew it's like I don't need anything other than a pretty much one modular rack and a Prophet. You can make just about any kind of music with just that if you have the right tools. It's just a matter of using a computer to arrange things properly at that point, because we have computers. Like, you're not stuck to DAWless jamming. I like DAWless stuff, but a lot of people suck at DAWless stuff. I'm not going to sit there and act like it's fucking brilliant and great, but that's the thing, it's limited. I'm aware of what I can hear with somebody using a computer, so generally my brain will tie towards that unless like somebody's just like extremely multi-talented. But a lot of times if they're a one-man or one-woman, one-person band, they're using a DAW to control all of that. They're not just sitting with just a synthesizer. I do really appreciate solo performance with just one piece, and I try to sit down with just one piece of gear most nights and just really get the most out of that one piece of gear without using a DAW, without using pedals, without using stuff, and really just focusing on what I have available right there to understand that piece of equipment. And it's great. Like it's not always, you're not gonna always make a song. You're not always gonna express a real idea that you might have, that's something that you hear that you actually like relate to, that pulls something out of you. And expecting that out of yourself is a little ludicrous. You can't expect to express, you know, like you got to think of having a song as having a conversation. I guess like that's the only way I can really. And then I've heard somebody say that too. It's like a conversation. You're not always gonna have the right. Fuck, who said that? Like I swear to God, that's like not even like subliminal, but it's like not even. I've heard somebody say it, like it's not even like an old thing. I've heard somebody say that, and it made sense to me. I was like, oh shit, like yeah, it's true. That's a good example. And it wasn't like an epiphany. I heard it and I was like, yeah, I agree with that. It is. You know, like the tonality, and like Leonard Bernstein talks about semantic ambiguity. You have two notes, two things going, and that third note is the like what the ambiguity sorry, comes from what that third note, the selected third note, is going to be. Those two notes are like ambiguous. You don't know where it's going to go, but once you hit that third note, the ambiguity resolves and you understand the direction of the conversation at that point. You're not so enthralled with where it may go, the possibilities of things. You're hearing what's happening now. And I think that's that's amazing. Like the fact that like I remember watching those in college like fucking 10 years ago, Fuck, dude. I get mad at myself. I was on a lot of drugs in college and shit, and I didn't really pay attention as much as I could. But I have those Leonard Bernstein lectures, and I do watch them here and there periodically, and I do remember learning very intensely from those. But it's not so much. It's not so much thinking. It's just more so about feeling, and that's really where a lot of the good stuff. And it's cliche. I know it's cliche as fuck to say, but this thing kind of gives you. Okay, that was a huge tangent. But tangent aside, this thing gives you everything you need to make something good. Like you can make dope shit with this. Let's get back to it. We got that swing going now. Here's a flanger. So let's put an LFO on this VCA amount. Let's see what we can get out of this. Oh, no, we were messing with our sync. That's what we were doing. I'm sorry, everybody. So we had oscillator. Okay, so oscillator 1 frequency is the destination for the auxiliary envelope. Let's play some chords here. I think that, yeah, it's repeating, that's why. Notice that, like that fall. See, it just gives you like a nice range of like new harmonics to fuck with, like. Go back to our 24 decibel. Let's just grab onto that shit. Turn the delay up on that envelope. Let's just listen to oscillator 1 here. So that's what's going on. That's pretty mean. Like, if you ask me, that's pretty cool. Earlier I was talking about using the sync and then modulating oscillator 2 to get even weirder, because it's like it's going to give you a traditional sync sound if you're just modulating oscillator 1. It's not like, oh, it sounds like sync. Yeah, fucking course it does. So start modulating oscillator 2 now. Check this out. we're just listening to oscillator 1. Let's repeat envelope 2, or envelope 3, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's getting into kind of modulating like bread and butter stuff. Let's start over. What are we gonna do here? Do we maybe want to make some kind of maybe more aggressive kind of thing? Okay, let's go to a Unison detune. Let's get heavy, boy. No filter. This is literally, I haven't modulated anything other than add detune. And the level of detune is 6 detune and 5 voices. get hoovers out of this thing. Yeah, I mean, like, basic bread and butter stuff. Let's see, let's go back to our Unison detune. Don't sit and act like this thing won't do shit. Bring it down, you take the Unison out, the detune and all that. Make it a little more subtle. Bro, like, okay. So if you make electronic music and you don't use like sampling and shit, like one shots and stuff, you're really missing out on a lot of like discretionary details and like things you can add to your music. It took me a long time to understand that. It's not something I just learned in a week. Like, let's turn this way down. Like, pitch it way down. That's sick. Let's put an effect on it. That's the distortion. So another thing you can do is, I don't know if you've ever like fucked with it. You take the DC, the audio out. It's a direct audio out from the VCA. The end, it's a digital representation, and it feeds it back in to whatever point you're feeding it back to. So let's maybe let's put an oscillator frequency. So the oscillator's feeding back on itself. Turn the distortion off. Delay on the envelope. Now we have the envelope repeating. Like that, dude, that. You just sample that part and just put a decay on the fucking amplitude on the sample. Like, that's, dude. So, I mean, all right, I think we're kind of getting there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a bread and butter thing. We're gonna show you how to make just like a nice pad, because I think that's kind of what everybody's trying to make here. We're gonna go through that. So let's we're gonna turn it to a 12 decibel filter. We're gonna start with one oscillator. Start with the ADSR. Turn your envelope amount like 93. Not percent, the level, like the number. Bring your velocity up, 107 for the envelope amount. Bring the velocity like 111. Bring the attack up to like 14. Bring the decay to 85. Sustain to 67. There we go. Cut off. Play a low chord that you like. It's about where it sits. Bring the resonance to, bring it to like 7. Envelope amount, 70. Second oscillator in. Shape mod, 13%. Just start it as saw wave. Detune them a little bit. 12 on the 10 on the fine, -7 on the fine for 1, 10 on the fine for 2. The sub out to about 21. Let's shape the wave with oscillator or envelope 2 or 3. Goddamn. Let's shape the oscillator 1 shape with envelope 3. Put a little delay on it, like 8. Bring the attack to 24. Decay to like 100. Sustain to, just bring it like to 80. And then the release like 96, just to give it like some motion. Like it's almost random. Like you're kind of hitting it, and it's gonna be decaying as you're like hitting stuff. So it's like you'll see. Like on the, let's use a triangle wave and bring the shape up to 16%, and then on oscillator 1, and then the envelope's modulating that. And that's at 73. Let's just hear that. It's subtle. Like, that's the thing. Subtleties are huge. Like, you're like, don't bring the decay down. The delay on the envelope. Don't turn everything all the way up. Just try to work with it like that. Like, just small little baby steps. Nice and frothy. There you go. Let's mod the shape with LFO1 for oscillator 2. And the frequency of the shape. And it's just on a sawtooth as well, and at 12%. So we're just going to take it, the LFO frequency to 19. The amount's going to be, let's put it 38. Just give it a little motion. Don't worry so much. Just doing a little, just a little extra, just a little randomness. Turn the sub down. Just to give it a little blattiness. So, I mean, like, okay, I'll go over this setting here real quick just to give you a basic idea of how to get to there. And it's a really simple sound. There's not anything complex happening here. Oscillator 1 is just standard tuning. Oscillator 2 is standard tuning. There's a little bit of delay on here. There's nothing fancy going on. No sync or anything. It's just, I think, the BBD delay. Or no, it's reverb. I'm sorry. Oscillator 1 and 2 are just kind of beating against each other with the oscillator 1 is detuned at -7. And then the fine tune at oscillator 2 is 10 positive. They're just mixed together through the mixer about halfway, a little more. Shapes at about 17% on oscillator 1. Oscillator 2 is 11%. Oscillator 2's shape is being modulated by LFO1, and only about 38 on the amount of LFO1. Not a whole bunch, just enough to give it some motion. And this is just a pad. This isn't anything like crazy. That's bread and butter shit. Simple shit. Here's the LFO filter. It's just, cutoffs at 39, resonances at 62. Bring the resonance down a little bit. 50. Just nice, kind of fizzy. The amount is 71. The velocity is at, actually 0 on that. Key tracking is at 0. Audio mod's off. No delay. 102 on the attack. Decay is 112. Sustain is 95. Release is 110. The shape from oscillator 1 is being modulated by envelope 3. The amount is 86. The attack is 23. The decay is 100. The sustain is 77. The release is 99. The delay is 7. The VCA, 26 on the spread, 105 on the VCA amount, 104 on the velocity, no delay. Attack is 34, decay is 93, sustain is 88, release is 102. Saw wave on oscillator 2, oscillator 1 is a triangle. That's it, like, for this sound. Like, that's all you really need is just a little. You don't need a whole lot, really, to get just a basic kind of big pad going. It's just reverb, and the reverb times 223. The tone is 50. The mix is 55. Simple. You know what? I'm going to just go through a few presets that I've made recently and just show you some what it's capable of, and then we're gonna call it a day because I think I've been going for a couple hours here at least. Yeah. So. Like, this is the type of shit I end up making and stuff. And if you like the sounds, I'll name them off. The last one was program V1. I'm sorry, user 1 P20 127. Bank here, I'll just say bank 1. Bank 1 127, or I'm sorry, bank 1 128. And then the next one, this one. Bank 1 126. And then this is one I've been messing with, like, try microtonal stuff, actually. So here, let me go and tune this microtonally. Number 5 is what I've been messing with. I've been getting into a lot of microtonal stuff lately. I won't subject you to too much of it. But it's pretty cool. Oh, it's okay. Kind of variations of the same thing. So I like some weird stuff here and there. Start it up, Maynard. Oh, this is just the filter. That's just some of these earlier. Here's one where it's like if you play a chord, it just kind of like... See, it's not all about just having to play everything constantly. Like, let the synth breathe. Like, let it do shit. It'll, you know, some of these sounds are very, so I mean, like, not everything has to be like... So not everything has to be, you know, a type of way. Like, you can make a lot of different sounds with this thing. Jesus Christ. You know, you can get kind of like raunchy, kind of squelchy sounds out of it. Let me see. Like, you can get it to like... Let's see here. So you can do like those kind of things with it. Like, this is the hi-hat from that song. So it's like you can make hi-hats with it, you can make kick drums, like you can do a lot of different things with this thing. It's really not like, it's limited to like what your creativity's gonna give you. Do I have any, like, I haven't even really gone into a lot of the other, there's other banks and shit, like. And then you got stuff like that, like. Not everything has to be full amplitude and like full velocity all the time, like. Try to use discretion. Like, it's hard to learn. Like, I've been trying to learn it for years. So, anyways, I hope this answers some questions for everybody. Like, if I have to do this again, I will. We'll dig deeper. Like, this was kind of like a seat of the pants. Like, I was just trying to see if the stream would work, and it took me literally 2 hours to get the shit working. So I kind of lost my momentum. But if we're gonna want to dig more, like, go ahead, subscribe, go ahead, like it, whatever, comment, leave some questions. I'll do what I can to retrack and find what I was doing. I hope this was at least helpful and it wasn't too self-indulgent. I really, again, it took a lot of muster to kind of get this going because I've been trying for about a month and it's not really worked out. But I'm going to have more now that I have this working and I have things going. I want to do this. I want to start doing some more modular stuff. My modular stuff is completely different now. I'm actually going to start my third case here. And it's, I'm going to expand onto some of that. We're going to get deeper into stuff, and I got some new releases coming out and stuff. And if you guys haven't checked it out, please check me out on Spotify, Apple Music. I think I'm on Google and Amazon. I'm on YouTube, but it's Sauce, AUX, Sauce Auxiliary is the name, the title. Go on Spotify, or, you can listen to some of my music on here that I have, some's released, some is not. But check me out on Spotify, check me out on Apple Music, iTunes, Google Play, or whatever the hell it is, Sauce, underscore AUX, or just Sauce space AUX. I got a few albums out. I got, some stuff out, and I'm going to be releasing more. But yeah, I want to do a lot more synth stuff. I want to do a lot more interacting and questions and stuff. So, please feel free to contact me. Feel free to subscribe, whatever it might be. Like I said, ask some questions. I like talking about this shit. So, thank you again for, sitting down with all of us and listening. And, I hope that you come back. So I'm going to give you a little sequence, play you out. And thank you. Goodbye.